Welcome to Wealth Explainers. Today we're breaking down why we buy things we don't want and what's really happening behind the scenes. Imagine you're walking through a store, but instead of seeing things normally, you're wearing a pair of invisible glasses. Let's call them dopamine vision glasses. Through these lenses, everyday items don't just look like plain plastic and metal, they glow. You see a high-end blender sitting on a shelf, and through the glasses, it's not just a kitchen appliance, it looks like a promise of better health, early mornings, a more organized life, and a totally new version of you. You grab the box, completely convinced this is going to change your daily routine. You walk up to the register, your anticipation is peaking, and you swipe your card. The transaction goes through. But in the exact fraction of a second that the payment processes, the glasses fall off. The glow disappears. You look down, and what you're holding is just a heavy, expensive, ordinary blender. You take it home, put it on a shelf next to the pasta maker and the fancy espresso press you never use, and there it sits. On the surface, it looks like you just bought a blender, but underneath, something much more complex just happened with your money. Here's the part most people miss. When we make impulse purchases, we aren't actually exchanging our hard-earned money for the physical item. We are exchanging our money for a temporary feeling. We are buying the anticipation of a solved problem or a better version of ourselves. Think about buying a whole set of premium camping gear when you haven't been in the woods in 10 years, or buying a bunch of organizational bins to solve a lack of space. The feeling of wanting these things is very real. The desire is authentic. But the financial system doesn't care about our feelings. When you swipe that card, the credit card company processes the payment for the blender exactly the same way it processes a payment for your electric bill. It treats the transaction as if you are buying permanent, practical value, even though you are actually just funding a temporary spike in your brain chemistry. Most people get frustrated with themselves when they see that shelf of unused stuff. They think they just lack discipline. But the truth is, the transaction was mathematically over the moment you felt that rush at the cash register. The blender is just the leftover receipt of that feeling. Now, this is where it gets interesting. This cycle isn't random. It follows a very predictable pattern. It starts with the anticipation phase. You see the object, but your brain actually sees the friction-free version of you using it. Your brain floods your system with dopamine, a chemical tied to predicting a reward. Your body reacts as if you've already achieved that future state. This is when those invisible glasses are firmly on your face, and the perceived value of the item is artificially inflated. Then comes the physical act of buying it. Swiping your card releases all that built-up tension. At that exact second, the perceived value of that idealized future feels so much higher than the amount of money leaving your bank account. And this is the key. Immediately after you pay, the anticipation ends. Your brain realizes the reward sequence is over, and your dopamine levels drop back to normal. The glasses fall off. Without that chemical high, the object goes right back to being a regular object. We call this the value collapse. It's the gap between what you expected to feel and what the item actually does. Think about someone who buys a professional-grade camera, but doesn't really know how to take photos. The anticipation phase is filled with visions of taking breathtaking pictures. The purchase feels totally justified. But a week later, the value collapses when the camera is just sitting on a desk, requiring heavy lenses and hours of editing to get a single decent shot. A common misunderstanding here is that people who buy these things are just careless with money. They aren't. In the context of the brain's reward system, the behavior makes perfect sense. The financial mistake is just using your long-term money to fund a short-term biological reaction. On the surface, it looks simple, but the human brain actually misinterprets the act of buying something as the act of achieving something. When you buy a treadmill, your brain briefly registers that as actually doing the exercise. Spending the money feels like making progress. Purchasing the object is just so much easier than doing the work the object represents. This creates a really deep disconnect between your income and your actual wealth. Income is the cash coming in. Wealth is the cash you keep. This spending cycle makes you feel wealthy because you are surrounded by the physical evidence of what your money bought. A closet full of expensive clothes feels like abundance, but structurally, it's the exact opposite. It's depleted money trapped in a form that is losing value every single day. Real progress in personal finance is usually invisible. It's numbers slowly ticking up in an account. It doesn't give you that immediate, loud rush of a new purchase. Stability is quiet, and our brains naturally prefer the loud, immediate feedback of buying something new. If you zoom out and look at this pattern over 5 or 10 years, the mathematical toll is heavy. When you repeat this cycle of anticipation and value collapse every week or month, it creates a massive drag on your net worth. It's known as cash flow leakage. A small gadget here, a new hobby supply there. Individually, they don't feel like a big deal, but over a decade, this leaks tens of thousands of dollars out of your pocket. This is why people hit a wealth plateau. Their income goes up, but their net worth stays totally flat. Plus, you end up turning your home into a warehouse for all these past purchases, which just creates stress and clutter. But the biggest issue is the opportunity cost. The money trapped in that unused blender can't earn interest. It can't grow. It can't protect you if you lose your job. The long-term damage isn't just about what you bought, it's about what that money could have done for you if you had kept it. When we step back, this all connects to a broader financial principle called behavioral drift. Behavioral drift is the slow, almost unnoticeable shift of your money away from long-term stability and towards short-term consumption. Building wealth isn't really about picking the perfect stock. It's about consistently keeping and allocating your money over a long period of time. Every time the impulse buying cycle wins, money gets diverted away from your compounding engine. Because the purchases are small, the drift goes unnoticed until years have passed. When you invest money, the growth is mathematically quiet at first. When you spend money, the result is highly visible right away. By keeping the money that would otherwise be lost to this cycle, you create margin in your life. Margin is the gap between what you make and what you owe. As that gap grows, it buffers your risk. It allows you to handle economic shocks without panic. Redirecting your money away from glowing objects on a shelf and into real, quiet assets is how you eventually reach the point where your money is doing more work than you are. So, the next time you walk through a store or browse online, remember the invisible glasses. When an item starts to glow and promises a completely new lifestyle, you can recognize what's actually happening. You can see it not as a magical object, but as a predictable spike in your own brain chemistry. You can visualize the shelf at home and realize that buying it will just trap your money and stop it from growing. By leaving the item on the shelf, you aren't depriving yourself. You are making a clear, structural choice to keep your money on your balance sheet, navigating your financial life with quiet clarity and grounded confidence. If you found this breakdown helpful and want to continue learning the psychology behind your money, please hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and leave a comment below with a financial topic you want us to cover next. Thanks for listening to Wealth Explainers, and we'll see you in the next episode.